and to this meeting of Falkirk Council, and welcome to those joining online. This is a special requisition meeting having been called by the following members: Councillor McCabe, Aitchison, Kelly, Mackie Brown, Nimmo, Ritchie and Spears and Baileycare. There's one item, a motion. No deputations have been requested and no amendments have been submitted, so there will be no debate. I'll just simply go to the group leaders for comment. The agenda was issued on Thursday, the 4th of September 2025. Hard copies are available for any member who requires one. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded. A video recording will be posted online shortly after the meeting on the Council's YouTube channel. To support members hearing online, I ask that members in the room speak directly into their microphones and keep it close to their mouth. If members in the room wish to speak, I ask that they indicate this to officers in Democratic Services, who will note this, rather than put their light on to avoid any microphone issues. Members joining remotely should ensure that their camera is turned on during proceedings. So before we start, could everyone check their phones on silent or off? I will now move to the Sederant. Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Provost. Provost Bissett.
Present.
With apologies from Deputy Provost Balfour. Councillor Aitchison.
Apologies.
Councillor Aitken.
Present.
Councillor Anslow.
Apologies.
We have apologies from Councillor Binney. Councillor Bowes.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
We have apologies from Bailey Buchanan. Councillor Bundy.
Present.
Councillor Colley.
Present.
Councillor Deacon.
Present.
Councillor Devine.
Present.
Councillor Flynn.
Present.
Councillor Forrest.
Present.
Councillor Garner.
Here.
Councillor Hannah.
Present.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Bailey Kerr.
Present.
Councillor McCabe.
Present.
Councillor Miko John.
Present.
Councillor Murtagh.
And short.
Councillor Nimmo.
Present.
With apologies from Councillor Patterson. Councillor Patrick.
Apologies. She had a prior appointment. Also, just be noted that she represents one of the residents in our financial aspect of our job.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Here.
Councillor Ritchie.
Present.
Apologies from Councillor Robertson. Councillor Sinclair.
Here.
And apologies from Councillor Spears.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moody. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? I think Bailey Kerr just highlighted a declaration of interest there. Councillor Patrick. Any other? No. Agenda item 3 is the motion. One motion has been submitted in accordance with Standing Order 29 and was published and circulated prior to this meeting. The following motion is reserved to Council.
Councillor Anslow has just joined us.
Was she joined? Oh, yes, I see her. Welcome, Councillor Anslow.
Apologies, convener had problems logging in.
Okay. You're here, that's the main thing. The following motion is reserved to Council and be considered today. So everybody's got a copy of the motion, and I'll now ask members if they'd like to ask any questions of officer. Councillor Colley.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, and for the chief officer, if that's okay. The first one is well, it's got a couple of bits to it, so I apologise. So Can you advise how part 5 of the motion will be implemented in practice, particularly as it relates to the IGIB business case presented to Council? And I think as part of that, where councillors provided with an opportunity to attend a briefing on the IGIB business case and ask questions, and are councillors given the opportunity to ask questions about the IGIB at full council? And how do you plan to deliver consultation with councillors in 2025-26? Just make sure I'm on the right year. 2025-26. So this year's budget process and the activities of the IGIB.
Okay, over to yourself, Mrs. Woodcock.
So thank you. So item 5 notes to agree that the annual business plan to Falkirk Council presented by the Chief Officer must contain sufficient details. So just to go through the process as is currently in place, the draft business case would usually come with the annual performance report to the council in December of each year, and that's what happened last year. In addition to that, last year we had an engagement session with elected members on the 28th of February, and during that engagement session we had the full options that we were going to be presenting to the IJB at their budget setting meeting in March. So we were able to go through those in detail with the elected members that were present and answer any questions. And then it was approved by IJB at their budget meeting in March. This year, we've put in place already 3 engagement sessions with elected members. The first one took place 2 weeks ago. We also have a half-day session being planned for November, and encourage elected members to come along to that to find out more about the work of the IJB and its function and purpose. In addition to that, we'll report to the Scrutiny Committee of the Council in November as per usual course of action with our annual performance report. And the annual performance report and the draft business case for 26-27 will go to Council in December time. We've also currently got a survey out to elected members, and I should say this survey's out to other key stakeholder groups as well, seeking feedback on the process and the approach we did last year around budget consultation in order to seek feedback on what went well and what could be improved. And we've also done a session with our IJB members on that, and that's part of our usual improvement process to seek to continually improve how we do engage. We do seek to be as open and transparent as possible, and we'll continue to do that and bring an appropriate level of detail that's available. As we're in a 3-year planning cycle now, so we now have indicative plans that were approved by IJB for next year and the year after. So we have a sense of that direction, albeit there remains a gap in our budget over the next 3 years, even with all of the decisions being undertaken. Some of the decisions, for example, one of the budget savings elements is a community bedded care review. And that review needs to take place. So until we undertake that review, we can't provide what I would consider as significant implications, because we don't yet know what the outcomes of that review will be. But once the review is carried out, and as it's carried out, we'll engage appropriately with key stakeholders. And I think that's a good example where I would anticipate there might be significant implications to the council and potentially the NHS. The budget saving attached to that review is £1.4 million. So I think it's really difficult to make a saving like that without having implications. So I think that'll be a really important one that we consult and engage with as it progresses. But we won't have that level of detail for December because the review hasn't yet commenced. I think the commitment is we'll continue to engage with elected members and all other key stakeholders as we progress with the work that we're doing. If there are ideas around how we can do that better, we're always open to hearing those, and we'll take those on board. If that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. I've got one further question, and we received a little bit of additional information this morning, and there'd been a question around the review of the intermediate care facility and the actions that had been taken. And I think it might be helpful just to note the actions that had been taken in relation to that, both by the IGIB and the council.
Hello.
Thank you. So the intermediate care facility in Falkirk Community Hospital was a fairly significant project that was being progressed a number of years ago. So in July 2021, there was a fairly significant launch event to scope out the project and to develop what was called an initial agreement. So there was a huge amount of engagement undertaken in respect of that throughout 2021 and 2022. So in 2022, we developed a strategic needs assessment, and that included significant engagement from key stakeholder groups and a range of workshops that were undertaken as well. In March 2023, at the council meeting, members acknowledged the 3.7 million that was earmarked for such a facility was unlikely to be sufficient, and councillors recommended that officers work closely with the partnership to develop a new proposal and business case that would allow new funding to be allocated at a later date. And then also in March 2023, there was national planning arrangements for healthcare projects that was introduced by Scottish Government, and a decision was made to include the master plan work as part of that wider whole system plan for the Forth Valley area. And then in January 2024, Scottish Government announced a 2-year pause on major NHS projects, updating its infrastructure investment plan. So what all of that means is that the work that was undertaken is not lost or wasted. It will contribute to what's needed going forward. The community bed-based review that I mentioned earlier will contribute to that as well. So in terms of understanding what the likely current and future needs is going to be for Falkirk in relation to community bed-based care, in order to bring that together so that when capital funding is available through the council and through the NHS, we have something that's ready to go. But at the moment, we don't have any indications that the capital funding position is likely to change in the short term either.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Colley. Any other questions from members, the officers? No? Okay, so we'll now go to Councillor McCabe to move his motion. Councillor McCabe, you've got 8 minutes.
I thought it was 10 promised, but I won't fight over 2.
8 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for attending. It's sincerely appreciated. I arranged this special meeting of Council to alert colleagues that the Integration Joint Board is an entirely independent body empowered to direct Falkirk Council on the delivery of council services delegated to it through the Public Bodies Joint Working Scotland Act 2014. Its activities have been increasingly disturbing to me. You'll be aware that Councillors Colley, Flynn and Hannah are members of the board. What a number of you won't be aware of is that they do not act as delegates of the council. They carry out their functions totally divorced from the requirements of the council. Council services are being singularly revised by the IGB despite continuing to be delivered from council premises with council employed staff and at council expense. The council has legitimate interest in being aware of the decisions the IGB make that impact on council services. The Tiggetshire Care Service re-provision by the IGB is the perfect example of where revisions imposed by the IGB are having a detrimental impact on the council as far as reputational damage, financial cost and potential future service provision ramifications are concerned. The IGB do not merely request changes of the council, they issue directions to the council. Directions which we must comply with. It's in the Act. IGB decisions are leading to changes in conditions to housing tenancy agreements, care service provisions, welcome pack documents between Falkirk Council and our residents. They're in existence. Without warning, the council is being left to respond to questions on these changes despite not being informed of the changes or its impacts. This IGB simply fails to communicate with the council on such basic matters. Existing Tiggetshire residents had to sign up to a welcome pack, which very clearly identifies a range of services Falkirk Council had agreed to provide. To quote directly from the document, the care within housing with care is provided to service users who have been assessed as needing care. Tiggetshire court staff offer a laundry service for service users. As part of their duties, Housing with Care staff can help to arrange social activities for service users. The events and activities are an important part of life in Housing with Care and, I emphasise, help to ensure that service users are not isolated, except by their own choice. I'll return to these issues later. Falkirk councillors are democratically accountable to the electorate. The IJB must be reminded of this fact and kindly requested to acknowledge and respect the role of local authority representatives. We must be made aware of decisions affecting delegated council services and assets with the opportunity to feed back on these proposals. The annual business plan presented to Falkirk Council by the IJB Chief Officer must contain sufficient detail to allow councillors to understand and consider proposals that impact on local council services. As an example of the current situation, I turn again to Tiggetshire. Within the Chief Officer's report, an options appraisal submitted in support of a decision to amend the care provision to existing service users, I quote, options appraisal, Tiggetshire. The current staffing levels do not allow for care to be delivered to all 26 tenancies. The Chief Officer's report at 4.6 stated the current staffing model has significantly higher capacity than is required to meet the care of the residents. What is it? Both of the statements can be true. They're totally contradictory. Given the grave concerns I highlight here, I'm asking colleagues to recognise that a radical change is required to the operational model of the IJB. The lack of adequate information being communicated to elected members prior to the Council's annual payment to the IJB is unacceptable. Turning once again to Tiggetshire as an illustration of how costly IJB summary decisions are to the Council. The IJB had identified alleged savings of £150,000 by privatising the provision of care services at Tiggetshire. To achieve these savings, we, the Council, will have to employ private contractors at a cost of approximately £210,000 per annum. Further, we will have to redeploy the existing council carers currently at Tiggetshire into other council vacancies elsewhere. We in effect have to swallow this £360,000 plus cost into our already stretched budget. It really just beggars belief. I think it was the Provost who adroitly posed the question, would it not be cheaper for us as a council to just give the IJB 150 grand of alleged savings rather than potentially costing us £360,000 plus? We'd be better off just giving the IJB the money. I would hope that in relation to the points raised, that it's recognised that it falls to elected members to consider such proposals and determine an appropriate response to the IJB. The current model clearly isn't working and things will only deteriorate. And the casualties in all of this? The elderly and vulnerable constituents in my ward who already have in place a perfect level of care to enable them to live out the remaining years of their lives in peace and calm. For them now to be put in a state of worry and anxiety is nothing short of a disgrace for which we should all be appalled and embarrassed. One final anecdote of Tiggetshire. My parents-in-law, 88 and 91, living 3 flights up, can no longer manage the stairs. They went to view a flat in the Tiggets complex on Friday. They loved it. However, the kitchen of the flat was tiny. There was no room for either a washing machine, dryer or refrigerator. When they asked if they could access the laundry within the complex, the housing officer was unable to answer. He just didn't know. Not because of any fault of his own, but simply because of unintended consequences of an IJB decision made without adequate consideration and consultation. Now, the outcome of this anecdote will involve either the Council's housing service agreeing to laundry access with all the questions of supervision, cleaning, maintenance, insurance, etc.
30 seconds left, Councillor McCabe.
Or council having to physically alter 20 flats within the complex, which have now just been rendered inaccessible due to standards within the lettable housing legislation. Another ill-considered option from the IJB, which costs us considerable sums of money. Thank you, Provost. Thank you for listening. Please give it thought. And remember, as Bailey Kerr forever reminds us, this is people's lives we're talking about. It's our elderly who are being impacted. Thank you very much, Provost.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McCabe. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Kelly. Okay. Anything you want to say? You've got 4 minutes. If anything. Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you. So we'll now go to group leaders. Councillor Meikle-John.
Thank you, Provost. We're not here to revisit a decision that's been taken by the IJB, nor should we, because that's not the council's remit. However, what is recognised, and I believe that what's fundamental in the motion is the desire to have more information at an earlier stage, in order that elected members are aware and can give some feedback to the IJB as part of their decision-making process. But we need to be careful that we do not fetter that. I think and that's why I'm happy to support the amendment. I think we do that, but the structure of the IJB is not something that this council can change. It's set out in legislation, and we have to work within those parameters. And we do work very, very closely with the Health and Social Care Partnership. Having sat on the IJB in the past, known that these pressures that we're building have been coming down the line, things are going to get more difficult. But in order to make sure that we are able to continue to provide support to those most in need, we may have to take some difficult decisions going forward. And the earlier that members are aware of those decisions, albeit they may not be fully worked through, and the tests of change that are then coming in order to be able to improve the service of delivery, I think the better. That's why I'm supporting the motion.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Meikle-John. We'll now go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Provost. Just to say that, first of all, I've been a local councillor for the Lower Braes for 3.5 years, and I have been on the Integration Joint Board for 3.5 years. And I do not see my role as a councillor and my role as an Integration Joint Board member as being totally divorced from one another. I am there as I am appointed by the council to be there. The difference between my role as a councillor and my role as a member of the Integration Joint Board is that as a councillor, my job is to represent the interests of my local constituents in the Lower Braes. As an Integration Joint Board member, my role is to represent the interests of all the residents of the whole Falkirk Council area. At least that is the way I see it. And that is how I try to operate as a member of the Integration Joint Board. I would also want to say that for the past 3.5 years, I've been working really hard to make councillors, to get councillors, not me, to get councillors to take an interest in the activities of the Integration Joint Board, because there are a lot of very vital services there that come under the Health and Social Care Partnership. I'm really pleased that this motion is coming forward, showing that councillors are taking an interest and do want to be better informed about what's going on in the Integration Joint Board. I'm also pleased about all the moves that officers have been making to engage more regularly and in more detail with councillors and other stakeholders. So I think moving forward, I am really pleased that there's going to be more interest and more information, and I'm happy to let this motion go without any amendment.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Hannah. We'll now go to Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Provost. Like everybody else, I appreciate that what the motion is asking for is more communication, more earlier communication. And I think that is key. And I'd like to thank Councillor McCabe for bringing this forward. I think what was pertinent for the very start was when the changes was highlighted, the families didn't think that they had the right communication and the right at the right time. And I think that's where, if this motion goes forward, hopefully that'll be identified. When these mothers, grannies get put into this housing complex, when they went in, they were in understanding that everything that was being serviced would continue. And I think that's change is hard for everybody. It's hard for the families, but it's hard for the people who live there. And I hope that everybody can support this motion. As the leader has already stated, we're not here to make or change decisions that the IGB's made, because that's not our position. But going forward, if we can get more communication earlier, I'm sure that'll allow anybody who has any concerns the right to raise it at the specific times. So I will be supporting the motion. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks very much, Billy Kerr. Is there any independent members who would like to make any comment? No. Okay. Looks like there's consensus around this, so can we agree the motion?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Just before we do,
Agreed.
Promise, if you don't mind,
No, that's the meeting closed.
I just wanted to offer my
my
sincere thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the indulgence, Promise. I just want to offer my sincere thanks to Councillor Meiklejohn, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Kerr, everyone for getting behind the purpose of the motion. Councillor Meiklejohn highlighted it right at the very outset. It's not about overturning a decision made by the IGB. It was never the intention of the motion. The motion was always to try and highlight where I feel communication could have been improved and should be improved.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor McCabe. But I think you take the point you're thanking
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you,
Okay, thank
Promise.
you.
Cheers.
So we'll now close the meeting. Thanks everyone for your attendance. Thank you.